So there's a moment that happens in every youth game, a close call, a whistle, and then there's an eruption. Coaches throw their hands up. Parents are screaming from the bleachers. Players freeze and they're looking at us to see what happens next. We stand there as an official. We're alone, calm, trying to be certain and absorbing it all, and then making the next call like nothing has happened. We do this dozens of times a game, hundreds of times a season, year after year. And we never ask what it costs. And to be honest, let's be honest, there is a cost. It's Mental Health Month, so we want to unpack what it costs us as officials today. We're going to look at the other participants in the coming days because there's a cost there too, right? We've talked to Cliff and Jesse, and you've seen some of other officials that have been impacted by poor behavior of game participants. And we want to know what some of the stakes are for us. I have my therapist here, my personal therapist, and yes, I think everybody should have one. I got a good one. And I will, Lydell, would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Lydell Smith. I am a licensed associate professional counselor here in the state of Georgia. I am also a national certified counselor and a certified rehabilitation counselor, which means I focus on invisible and visible disabilities when it comes to my clients. I received my degree from Mercer University, but before that, I have a master's in public administration from Kennesaw. I ran from counseling as far as I could, but it was a calling for me, and I couldn't, just ignore it. And before that, I went to Morehouse College, degree in political science. So,
HBCU.
And so it's been quite a journey. Like I just mentioned, counseling, as you mentioned, I'm your therapist, but I also have my own therapist. I think it's important for us to unpack and unwind. As I talk to you during our sessions, I like to practice what I preach. So I'm not going to have you come in and do things, and I'm not working on myself as well.
Beautiful.
It's
a judgment-free zone. So, yeah. I mean, some people say, you can't say everything you think.
Yeah.
But with you, I can say everything I think.
Absolutely.
So it's a beautiful thing, man.
Absolutely.
You're great, man. I'm happy to have you here at the Black and White Table. And I kind of want to share some of my own experiences and stories. But, I think walking off the court after a game, just this past weekend, man, I just had parents that were just, you're horrible. He can't see. He don't know what he's doing. What is he? What do you think? I mean, like, I felt really angry in the moment.
Yeah.
But then, like, there's just this overwhelming sadness that happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like, why is a game? What can you explain a little bit of what psychologically what we might be going through as officials, or what I might be kind of dealing with?
Absolutely. I didn't mention this, but I actually worked in the school system. I worked in a K-12 private school for about 10 years. And before that, I worked in nonprofit dealing with youth and families. And one thing that I would always say is the kids are the parents' prized possession. It's like you're dealing with their money. It's more important than their money.
Right.
So what I've experienced a lot of emotion from, you're dealing with something that's very important to me. So they're responding to that. But understanding from the official standpoint, you guys, I tell you in our sessions, you're always entitled to your feelings. Everybody says that we all, it's okay to not be okay, things like that. But what people don't say much often is you're also responsible for your actions. So understanding how, you can feel there's a lot of mad people and angry people who are now dead or in jail,
right,
because of that action afterwards. But it sounds like that anger and frustration that you feel is because the sense of you're attacking me. I'm a human being. I'm a person. And I think, parents don't recognize the humanistic aspect of your role.
Yeah.
You're human. So at the same time, you're going to have that angry feeling. You're getting these things. They're not saying, referee or, this title. They're talking to you specifically.
Yeah.
So those feelings of being, attacked, and especially they're not recognizing what your day was like as well, what you've gone through that entire day. if you ate, if you didn't eat. So you're dealing with all of that impact.
Right.
And you're receiving that.
Right. How many games I've done that day. I mean, what type of sleep I got the night before.
Absolutely.
I mean, if I was at a Holiday Inn or whatever, you know what I mean? Because really those things impact performance, right?
Absolutely.
The same thing with their kids, right?
Yeah.
So, I wish though, you think there's something that we can say or to them, or is like, we're taught not to talk to the parents.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something, that we could say to them that would kind of throw them off or, make them stop? Is it just we just got to ignore them for the most part?
I think, because I think you both are, it's interesting because you both have the same common goal, just the respect of the game, and one to make sure that the child is safe and healthy. How you're coming at it sounds like it's at different directions. You're making sure that the rules are being followed. They're making sure that my baby is taken care of.
Right.
So I think, it's interesting that you say that you all are taught not to have a conversation. I think probably one of the biggest tools is to have a conversation. Maybe not at the game, and maybe not after the child just lost or they've been fouled out. But I think, I always felt like it's important to bring those people to the table together to have a conversation. We can't resolve anything if we're not talking.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I want to get some passionate parents on the show.
Yeah.
It's pretty difficult, and I love to have you on the show when we do.
Yeah.
Just to kind of unpack and figure out, what they're thinking, when they're saying something, because, I wouldn't go to their job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And give somebody $5, give their boss $10 and go yell and scream something at them.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, psychologically, do you think that stuff comes home with officials for the most part?
Absolutely. Again, that's that humanistic approach, perspective of it. It is going home with you all. I don't think that's in the forefront of the parent's mind or even in the kid's mind or anything like that. I think, it's natural to be able to take those things home with you. We don't, in our sessions and stuff and through my, when I talk to people, I tell them it's, you have to download. You have to have a place to remove all of that, because if not, you're internalizing all of it. It's like we talked through. It's like, blowing into a balloon. You're just blowing all their anger and frustration, and one day it's going to pop. Like if you keep blowing into this space, it has to go somewhere.
Right.
The important part is being able to manage where it goes, being able to control that part. If not, it's going to control you.
Yeah, so we need therapy, right? Because that's essentially what you're advocating, right? There has to be someplace as officials, right, that we are able to let the air out of the balloon, so to speak, right?
Absolutely.
So you, I swim, running, whatever it is, we've got to have a place to exhale, so to speak.
Absolutely. Because if you're thinking that it's not, oftentimes it's easy for us to say it didn't bother me or I let it go. And what we start to see that it starts coming out in different ways. So it starts coming out in more of your behavior. So you start having more interactions where you're frustrated easily. You get frustrated often. You get sad often. You're not understanding where that comes from. But you thought, you told yourself, I'll let it go.
Yeah.
We don't really let it go unless we're talking about it or finding a healthy way to process it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because there's a lot of officials who say, oh, I don't hear them. Or, it doesn't bother me what people say. Do you feel like, I think there's a couple things. How can it not bother you? Right? If we're hearing, how can we not listen to it?
Yeah. If
you're screaming, louder than anybody in the gym, and how can it not bother you?
Well, I think what they're saying overall is I've become desensitized. I've heard this so much. I've heard, it's different school, different sport, different things like that. But I'm hearing the same thing. I'm constantly hearing insults. I'm constantly hearing my decisions being challenged. And so in order for me to do this job, I had to become desensitized, which is not always a healthy way of coping with that problem.
Yeah. And is that, you think that's a good thing? Is that,
No,
I mean,
I think because then that's me saying I'm desensitized. It's like me turning off emotions. I'm turning off how I want to respond to this or how I want to process it. I'm just ignoring it. So what we do is avoid that true feeling. And this is not in all cases. Of course, we're talking just kind of overall, generally.
Right.
But I think when you become, it's similar to this. If you think about back in 20, 30 years ago when we heard about school shootings, it was a shock and an awe and a surprise. Now it's like, not that we're not saddened by it, but it's like, oh, it was another shooting. And then the next day we're thinking and talking about something else.
I know. And it's so, to me, like, all of that makes me sad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It makes me sad that, little elementary school kids are getting shot and nobody seems to care, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me sad that parents are allowed to behave, coaches are allowed to scream and act crazy.
Yeah.
And we say it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's just part of what is there another profession that you know of that, is taking on all of that anger, rage, or whatever the passion is?
Yeah, I'm sure, quite a bit of them do. Not as much as the officials, I think, because it sounds like, they feel like you all are you're calling the shot because you don't like my child. Are you calling the shot because of what you saw and didn't see? As a parent, I may have seen another view or side, or, he let that pass with another person. So you guys are really being, in this fishbowl of anything you do, anything you say, and it's really being magnified, specifically if it's impacting someone I care about or love. And so a lot of those responses, no, I don't think that they're okay. But also, understanding the background of that parent dynamic or that role, thinking about how much they've invested, how much time, they're taking kids to and from practice, they're doing this. So, and a lot of times they don't see, that this particular call that you had or said, they don't see that specific view and your reasoning behind it. Yeah. They're not caring about your reasoning at that moment. They're caring about this could impact my child. They're looking at the impact.
Yeah.
This impacts my child's future. This impacts them going to college or how that the scholarship.
So when you see an environment like a high stakes game, do you think like, man, this is, it's a great environment? Or, are you like, man, this person is screaming and they need to come see me?
Yeah, definitely, man. I want to pass out my car. I want to go anywhere. Like, even when I'm driving down the freeway, like, I want to pass out. But I think, one thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, one thing when we talk about with therapy and counseling, it's not going to be productive or it's not going to really make sense unless you're ready and open for it. Not saying that, I have to come in and listen to, just have to do all of the work, but I got to be ready to say there's something in my life that needs to be changed. And so I think as an official, as a parent, understanding how my response may see, sometimes we did an activity one time where you said a response and I let a few minutes go by. We were just having a conversation and I responded to you like you responded to me. And it took you a minute.
Oh man, I was shook. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, you wanted to fire me, right?
Man, wait a minute.
I cleaned it up by saying, this is what you sound like when you ask a specific question. We don't have arguments with ourselves, so we don't know what that feels like. These parents are yelling at you, but somebody come and yell at them, it's going to be, oh, what did you do? But they're not seeing how they're responding. They're not seeing how they're making that person feel. That's not the forefront of their mind. But I'm sure if it was reversed, then they would have a different approach.
Right, because when I say something to them, they're like, why are you talking to me? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, part of me feels like that unwritten rule of we can't say anything back to them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm all about fairness.
Yeah.
But I really want to just be able to say, if you could like read the thought bubble, right? Like, yeah. But, and sometimes, I'm crazy, right? Yeah. So I'm the crazy one that probably says way too much on the court anyway.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll throw you out of the smug scratcher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm the dumb ass ref that will kick you out and embarrass you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So please, I'm not trying to hear you.
Yeah.
You're a distraction. You know what I'm saying? So, and in basketball, it kind of feels like for me, I almost have to take on that persona. You know what I'm saying? To kind of protect myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask you that. Not that this is our therapy session.
Well, it's okay. I mean, I'm ready. I need one. I'm ready.
But my question for you is: did you start that way, or is it something over time that you felt like you grew and had to become?
Oh man, I mean, I definitely grew into the role.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like it has. I think you know, doing this for so long, and I mean, I did it as an avocation and as a vocation, but doing so many games, you know, it's just like I felt like I had to take care of myself that way.
Exactly.
If I didn't, you know, it's like you learn how to, you know, to make it through whatever environment you're in, you know, and I mean, I was doing games downtown on the you know, down in the east side, wherever it was, you know, I was working and I felt like I had to, you know, basically pretend like I had my pistol on my hip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now really I feel like I need to have a pistol on my hip.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a great question, you know, and I wish I didn't have to be like that. That's the thing, you know, for me that I think this is about. Is trying to change some of that, shift some of that culture, change some of that culture, you know, so that, I mean, it's okay for you to cheer, you know what I mean? But when you start, you know, directing and making you statements to an official, then it's really, you're walking a thin line.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And what you just described over time, you know, it's natural for us to build that defense mechanism, that defense system. We're going to protect ourselves. And it sounds like in the beginning, you came in with this open concept of, hey, I just want to make sure we're playing the game and everybody's doing right. But hearing some of those responses and being in some situations you may have been in cause you to the next game or the next time or the next environment feel more defensive. It's similar to what we talk about. You know, we understand this physically with fight or flight. When every time we're in a dangerous situation, we're going to run, we're going to stay there and knock it out, you know. Our emotions do that. And that's the thing that we don't understand or just think at the forefront. But I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to feel like you're attacking me or attacking my character. So I'm going to walk into this environment with the defense up naturally. Yeah. It's not something you say, I'm going to be mad. No, I just need to protect myself.
So how, when we're like at our regular jobs or at home, I mean, being in that constant conflict, what do you think there are ways that would show up with our families, you know, with, you know, our bosses at work? I mean, do you think, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I mean, I just am thinking like that constant conflict and listening to that over years and years and years. Do you think it impacts us?
It definitely impacts us.
And how would you?
Yeah, it impacts our nervous system. So we are always feeling anxious. We're always feeling on guard. We're always feeling that sense of you know, worry and nervousness when we're walking. Even when the environment is calm, we still are going to feel like something could potentially happen because of the things we've been through, because of what we're experiencing. And we haven't gotten rid of that. Again, think about that balloon. It's still sitting there. It's just getting bigger and bigger. So I think, you know, it's going to impact how we relate to family, who our jobs, potential partners, or, you know, friendships and things like that. It's going to come out because, you know, I haven't been able, I'm saying I'm not worrying about it anymore, which means I just haven't had time to sit and process. One, why did this make me feel this way? Sitting after every game, I think a helpful tool for officials is after every game, instead of just going into the next thing or just kind of moving into going back to the room, let me take a few minutes to just figure out what's going on. Like, why am I feeling so anxious? When I left this game, did it make me feel like I accomplished something? Like, do I feel happy about it? Or am I feeling stressed? Yeah. Because once you understand, I always say name the thing, man. Because in order for you to name it, to be able to have a name with it, you can deal with what's going on. Yeah. If I'm feeling angry, I need to understand and say, you know, this pissed me off today. Yeah. Talk about it. Because if you don't, you're moving past that feeling and it's just being bottled up. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that hypervigilance, you know what I mean, is really something that, you know, I feel like I carry over into, you know, my life. You know what I mean? Like,
it just is something that, you know, I don't, and I don't even want my friends or family to go to games with me. You know, I mean, like, I'm just like, you know, like, I don't even want you to see what kind of car I drive. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, I don't want people to, you know any of that stuff for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, and I don't think I know that's not a good thing.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I know it's not, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think, to me, if there's a way to kind of talk to my partner or, you know, maybe, you know, there's got to be something that we can do to kind of decompress or debrief or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
After a day.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. I think, you know, having a good support system is important in these environments and in these roles that you're having, because like you say, you're taking on so much. But at the same time, you don't want to overburden your partner or the person as well, because they're dealing with what they're dealing with. They're going through challenges. And if I'm just constantly downloading these frustrations. So, you know, there's opportunities for you. Like you just mentioned, I swim. I mean, that's a good, healthy outlet for you to get, you know, some of these frustrations and feelings out. I think, you know, we talk about journaling. Like, people don't like to write. I'm going to say this, you know, the first time my therapist was like, you know, go and journal. I was like, oh, okay. You know, so sure, I'm going to write, you know, not that it's not a healthy tool, but it's just not a healthy tool for everybody. So, you know, I you know, as you know me, the first time I met you, I said, listen, if we talk through some things and I'm giving you tools and I'm telling you, hey, you know, Kai, let's go, you know, make sure you just go and write this down for me or read this particular book and you got 10 other things going on, that's not going to be helpful to you, man. So I always tell me that this is not going to work for me. I'm not a reader, so don't tell me to read. I'm not a writer, so don't do that. So I can find other tools to help me. So we start talking about things as record yourself. While you're taking these drives, just put record on and talk your thoughts out. That's a good way of getting those emotions out. If you are, you know, a person who likes to video yourself. If you want to do some things, but, you know, write an email to yourself. Like, there's ways to get these feelings out. And I always say, don't worry about it being grammatically correct. Don't ask chat everything about this. But just make sure you're finding somewhere to put those feelings, because the more that they circle around in your head, they're building narrative, they're building stories. Yeah. So like you talked about, I walked into these environments where I had to feel like I had to feel. So till now, I probably need one because I'm building these stories and I'm building these narratives that I need to protect myself.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I love that, man. I love those solutions. And, you know, that's definitely one of the answers to one of the questions I was going to ask, you know. I mean, hey, listen, man, I love it. I think, you know, we've got to develop and work together. You know, I mean, I definitely know that it's going to take compromise from all of the game participants.
Yes.
We need you. I'm an advocate for you, of you, you know, and I want other people to seek therapy, you know, if they're ready for it, right?
Absolutely.
I believe it's been beneficial for me, you know, so, but we talk about burnout, right? I mean, like, it because of all of the career just being, you know, kind of just punched in the mouth, so to speak, right? We can see why burnout would be something that is fairly high, or why kids even may not want to get into officiating. Do you think this newer generation, I guess younger generation, let's call them, how do you think they're going to survive or would survive being officials?
Yeah, I think, and that's a really great question, because of course every generation has their own, you know, things that they're willing to deal with, and there's more tools and technology and things that are coming out. I think it's important for, you know, this generation of officials now to really reinvest into the younger officials. If it's a career path that they want to go into, I think not even just going into the perspective of here are all the things that are wrong, but here's how you can protect yourself. You know, just with that mindset of reaching back to the next person, because if they go in just blinded or, you know, with eyes wide open, and I'm just going to change, because we always feel like we can do somebody else's job better. And that's not the case, because we don't know all the things that go on behind it. Yeah. I think, you know, a good opportunity, like I always say, is have the conversations. If there's kids who are in the sports right now who love the sport and may not go into, the NFL or NBA, but they love what they do and they want to give back, I think having these conversations to be able to talk about, here are some things that would have helped me prepare for this role. I think those conversations in generations, because if we're not talking to the younger generation, then they're learning it from different ways, or they're getting, things from Dr. TikTok and, certain places.
Right.
But to sit down and have a really great conversation about your experience, and then also hearing their ideas, because we can also continue to learn. As things are growing and evolving, we can hear how they're looking at it, because they're being impacted by some of the calls you're making.
True.
How are they impacted by this? We're talking about parents and all the other, but if you look at all the dynamics, how are they being impacted? Because this is something on the line where they felt like their future was, if I got fouled out one more time, my scholarship is on the line.
Right.
And you just made that call for me.
Yeah.
Now I don't like you.
Right.
But you didn't know all of the backstory behind these things going on. So they could have had that negative experience. And also them taking ownership, teaching them how to take ownership. Now, you've been following out this whole season now.
Right.
I'm just seeing you today. This is not my fault. Like, there's some strategies that need to change on your end. But if we don't have that open dialogue, then we don't know what you're dealing with, and you don't really know what they're dealing with.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. I mean, I actually had an opportunity I've been in the game so long. Some of the high school players who are now referees, a guy was like, man, you ref my game. And I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I remember you gave me a tip, you and, so it's interesting that you say that. And we don't know, you know what I mean? I know there's a small percentage. So I was checking out the stats, and there's about 32 million youth sports players of all different sports. There's probably about 9 or 10 million that are playing basketball.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So of those, there may be 10,000 that are playing basketball in college. There's 500,000 athletes in college that are playing, right? So, I mean, if you look at statistically, those numbers are they're so crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and then to make it to the NBA or the NFL, where there's maybe a couple hundred positions, on teams, the chances of a kid playing, that's playing now are pretty slim. So I think we got a big pool of kids that we can ask to officiate.
Absolutely.
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And that mentorship is essential, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's something that, I had a few, I sought out some people. And it's a role that I believe is really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that. So why do you feel like we don't really talk about needing help?
We as in the officials, or we as in, because that's a broad thing.
Yeah, well, I got this book right here, man, by my guy Courtney Vance.
Okay.
And it's a great book.
Yeah.
And it talks about, the Black man's lack of seeking out help.
Yes.
But maybe if you can touch on officials in general. I don't know. Have you ever had an official as a client?
No, I have not.
So I'm your first.
You're my first.
Okay.
Man.
But definitely maybe from the official's role and from, the general populace.
Okay. I think, and that's why I asked, because it's different. There's various reasons why we don't seek help. The biggest one from, I would say, maybe officials or men in general. I deal with, I would say 90% of my caseload is men.
Wow.
And that's including young boys, ages, my youngest client is maybe 7.
Wow.
I have all the way up to,
Me, 92. I'm sure.
And you still not my biggest client. But I think the thing about it, and sometimes we're taught that asking for help is a sign of weakness, which I think is completely false. It's actually the opposite. Asking for help is brave. Asking for help means it's a strength characteristic that we don't talk about a lot. But growing up as a young Black boy, It's you don't need help or fix it or do it yourself or man up and do those things. Those kind of things that we've heard so often. And even in sports, I mean, I would say in sports, it's even more like you get hurt, sit over there and get back up. Like it's time to get back in and things like that. Right. And so you're coming from a view of that, I can't show weakness in this. I can't ask for help. If I ask for help, one, my position could be taken away from me. I build this narrative that, if I ask for these things, all these bad things, they're not going to call on me. They're going to feel like I'm weak. They're going to feel like, they're going to find somebody else. I'm going to be replaced. So
can't do the job.
And that's not the case. Sometimes asking for help, like I say, it's a sign of bravery. It's going to somebody with a vulnerability to say, you know what, I know my strengths, but here's some areas that I do have some weakness and I want to work on those. Mm-hmm. Can we have that conversation though? Yeah. Can you sit and be vulnerable in front of someone without feeling like it's going to be used against me and those kind of things? So I think asking for help is it's something that we have to learn over time. Yeah. Because, I tell you in therapy all the time, the hardest part about therapy is unlearning the unhealthy stuff and learning it in a different way. Because I've been doing it well, or because I've been doing it all of my life, I feel like it's right, or it's gotten me this far.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's healthy for you.
Right.
Right. So let's learn it in a healthy way.
Yeah, that was a big thing, we talked about real early on was, those habits that I've ingrained in my head, just because I've been doing it that way.
Yes.
I have to unlearn it first, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it takes a long time. It's been years I've been doing it like that and thinking that it's okay and thinking that it's right.
That's it.
So what are some things you think that we can do or I can do to kind of create a better environment for officials to seek help or to, support each other? I mean, do you have any ideas about that?
Absolutely, man. I think the biggest part is what you're doing now. It's sharing your story. Even in, as a therapist now, it is important for me to talk about my experience with therapy because I don't want you to feel like, it's a stigma or it's isolated or, you're feeling alone. Sometimes when I'm feeling these ways, I feel like I'm the only one in the world feeling like this. Mm-hmm. Well, if we have a conversation, I understand you felt that way. Every people watching feel this way, but we don't talk about it. So I think one is starting the conversation. Yeah. That's the biggest thing that you started already and are doing a great job at. So please continue that. And also just giving them the right tools and directions. Now, sometimes I know we can say, oh, my friend needs therapy. I got to talk to somebody.
I got something that I can talk about.
But the thing about it is you can't force anybody into this process. You can just share your story with them and let them find that, I can give you the right person. Or if that's not the right person for you, let's sit down and find what you need at this particular time.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about kind of creating this, this group that, of men and women that want to, maybe have you, come and just talk to us and, like an AA group, right? An Officials Anonymous group, where we just are, all together and, we can bounce things off of you and kind of, do you think group therapy or something like that would be?
Group therapy is powerful. I've seen it work. I've done healing circles with people who have been impacted by, violence and things like that. And just sitting in the room because questions that you have, I'm thinking about as well. I may be thinking about something similar, but I don't want to say it. I can't say it out loud. And so having a professional in a room to get the thoughts going, and to get that conversation started and to make everybody feel like, I always say group therapy is, just to let you know, group therapy they talk about is it's a difference between a safe space and a brave space. A safe space is where you and I are talking and there's complete confidentiality, nobody knows. A brave space, I'm sitting in a group sharing my ideas. Right. You can go out the room. Now, as your therapist, I can't say nothing to anybody. Right. But somebody can go out and he was scared of that, But it's building and breaking those barriers and just saying, hey, I do feel this way, and then having real open conversations about it. So I do think that having the group around you is important, and it also starts to build that village and that thought process of how can we work together, because you're thinking of one way to be able to solve the solution, but if you have a bunch of people in the room, you're going to come up with so many more ideas of what they're thinking from their lived experiences.
Yeah. Would you be willing to support us on that?
Absolutely, man. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
I think I'm gonna try to set something like that up in the near future.
Absolutely.
And
don't think about the size. If it's 3 or 4 people, that's enough group for me. Listen, start it, because if you put it on like I just need 10 people, then we're going to be putting off the process. So if you have 3 or 4 people who want to get into a room, and let it slowly start to grow and evolve. It doesn't take that many to start the conversation.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me was that first call, right? Even just saying, I need help.
Yeah.
Once I figured that part out, it's something that I know I'll do my entire life, right?
Absolutely.
And I hope that, if there's officials that are raging themselves, that burnout stage that, I think some of us may be close to just dealing with kids now. If you're feeling like that, I think it's really important to seek help. Absolutely. And to, try to find some place to let the air out the balloon.
You gotta let it out, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if not, like I talked about, that balloon is gonna pop. And when I talk about the balloon popping, that just means I don't have control at that moment, because you don't know where the air is going. So at that moment, it's about you managing your feelings before they manage you.
Yeah. We talked about, officials, and I don't really want to go into the kids too much right now,
Sure.
or the parents, but if it's toxic, you feel like what is toxic an okay word to use for kind of the environment at times?
Mm-hmm.
If it's toxic for us as grown, mostly adults, right, that are officiating, we got some youths that are doing it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they have let me ask you, if we've got younger officials, right, mm-hmm. Is there a way that we can equip them better or differently than somebody that will help them stay longer or be more successful?
Yeah.
Is there something that I can share with them, or say to them, or you could say to them?
Yeah, I think, it also depends on if they're open to it as well. Them having that open conversation or being open, because, just being honest with you, some young officials are going to come in and they're going to change the game, and they know exactly what should be done. But I do think that, having, like you talk about a group scenario, I think in that group, you should have people from different angles. Mm-hmm. You should have officials who are just starting, to those who've been in it for a while, to those who have been burned out, to those who have retired from it. Mm-hmm. You need to have the whole dynamic at the table. Right. So you can have these evolving conversations. And so I think them being in a place where, they're open to hearing not just all of the things that you were frustrated about. Talk about why you're still there. When I worked at different places and I had to do exit interviews for my employees and stuff like that, it hurt me. What I started doing after that, man, is I started doing interviews instead of those yearly evaluations. Some of the questions on there will be, what's keeping you here? Mm-hmm. I don't want to know at the last day when you're leaving, why you're leaving. Right. I want to know from the people who are happy here, what's keeping you, so we can make sure we're doing that and highlighting these things. So I think having conversations with the younger generation, are them hearing why you're still in it. Yeah. What is your passion still about it? And just kind of having that openness to listen to that.
Yeah, great stuff, man. Beautiful. Hey, okay, so I pulled off my train of thought. I'm all over the place. I hop all over the place. But
okay.
Parents and kids, do you think if it's toxic for us, do you think it's toxic for everybody?
It could be. I think it could be a toxic environment for all if there's just constant combativeness and bickering and things going on. I think there could be that lane of, an unhealthy environment. Yeah. It's not going to be productive. If I'm constantly being screamed at her, I'm trying to focus on playing the game, and I hear my mom screaming at the official and what's going on. Of course, I'm gonna, it's gonna kind of throw me off, or it's gonna kind of make my attention go somewhere else. I think we really need to understand how it's impacting the kid.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's who you're there to protect. That's who the parents are there to protect. But are we protecting them if we're going at each other?
Yeah.
Sometimes we miss out on the important part of it, of how is this impacting that child.
Yeah. So I was thinking about when you mentioned that, I was thinking about like large, soccer, stadiums, right? You've seen those soccer brawls and stuff. Like, what do you think is going on there? I mean, like, how and why is there such chaos in those environments?
In those environments, it's a lot of going on. There's alcohol involved, there's passion, overly passionate people involved. But what that is their mood is escalated, the behaviors. I'm not really thinking about the consequences of these actions. I'm responding. If you think about situations where, people are going in and you're either going to be proactive or reactive. I'm being reactive to something. I'm reactive to a call. I'm reactive to my team losing. So I'm already feeling this way. How we think interprets how we feel. How we feel interprets how we behave. They're all connected. And how we behave can impact how we think. Then that goes into how we feel. If I'm going into a situation where I want to be overall happy, I'm going to have happy thoughts. So I'm going to feel good about the environment, which means I'm going to actually let some stuff go that I normally would. Mm-hmm. But if I'm going in pissed, then I'm going to be mad, which means I'm ready to attack.
So when you said how I think is it impacts how I feel. Mm-hmm. How I feel impacts how I behave.
Absolutely.
So all three of those things. So really, part of it is thinking. How we think. That's probably the first thing.
Yes. Well, it can go different ways. It's what we call the cognitive behavior therapy triangle. So people who do CBT go through that particular model. I use that in some situations. So it can start anywhere. If I start behaving, if I wake up and I'm in a mood, I'm going to do something that's not. I'm not waking up and I'm not eating breakfast or thinking. So I'm waking up and I'm already getting up mad. So I'm going to start having these bad thoughts throughout the day, which is going to make me feel down. So it can start anyway. Or if I wake up with a real icky, groggy feeling and I already know my day going to be long, then that means I'm going to start moving slower because I don't want to get there. And then I start thinking that way. So if you realize the interconnection of all of those things, that goes in how we impact stuff.
Yeah, that's really powerful, right? I like that triangle. And I think I mentioned this guy, John O'Sullivan, wrote this book, and it's really great. It's called Changing the Game.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he says, Lydell, is that he doesn't feel like there's any way, like parents screaming, coaches cursing, or that poor behavior, there's any way that something can't negatively, like your kid can't perform at their best. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, it's just impossible, right?
Right.
If you mentally, that's impacting how that kid thinks, right? Yeah. Subconsciously or consciously.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement in a sense. Like, I kind of use that example of if my mom or dad is screaming in the bleachers and they cursing and doing things like that, that's going to somehow impact my focus. And that's going to somehow impact how I'm playing the game or how focused I am in the game. So, if they're cheering, think about it. And not that sense of how they're doing it in a negative way, think about what happens with kids when they cheer, when they score a touchdown or when they score a 3-point, and everybody's cheering for them. It increases their morale. Mm-hmm. So think about it in a negative sense. It's going to impact them if I'm doing, things that are negative. If I'm hearing all these negative things, it may, in some ways, it may be able to throw me off my game, or it's not going to have me feeling that positive feeling.
Yeah, you're not going to feel or think.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a good way, in a best performing sort of way, right? So your actions have to be impacted according to that triangle.
According to that triangle, yes.
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, hey, listen, man, we're going to have to start trying to wrap it up. I could talk, I talked to you for, an hour and it goes by way too fast.
Absolutely.
And this has gone by way too fast. But I want you to come back, right?
Absolutely.
So I know there are at least a couple of future sessions that I want to bring you in, and that's the parents and the kids. We just got to start continuing to unravel all of this stuff. So, and it's interesting, you started talking about the we're not machines, we're people.
Mm-hmm.
We are someone's spouse, right? We're someone's parent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we choose to be there because we love the game and believe in what it teaches the kids.
Yeah.
We didn't sign up to be screamed at or abused.
Absolutely.
And we can't continue to keep pretending that we're fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? The abuse isn't normal.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't signed up to carry the cost of this system that's really broken.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want to change some of the way we cheer. I don't want to change the passion.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I need you to help shift that because we're losing officials and we can't afford to lose any more, right? So I just want to just say thank you for all that you do to support me, to support us. I know your tree is big and large and long, and I hope it continues to grow. I know you do great work, man. So
I appreciate it.
I'm inviting you back right now, and thanks for coming, man.
Thank you, man.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
All right.
So that's the Black and White Table Talk. We're going to wrap it up. And this is my guy, Lydell Smith. So thanks for joining us today.
I
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.